The term African American was advanced in the 1980s to give individuals of African descent an equivalent of German American, Italian American, and so on. The term has gained popularity during the 1990s and 2000s, but today it is often considered a self conscious political correctness that is unnecessary when taken out of context. During these informal speeches and ratings, black is often preferred and is rarely perceived as offensive. Colored, which is an old term for African American people, is now considered offensive, and Negro has fallen out of favor among young black Americans. Many times, most of these words and phrases we speak in everyday conversation are not meant to be derogatory or racist, but it varies depending on perception. Even general words we wouldn't expect to be racist can be. As prospective school counselors and student affairs professionals, it is important to be mindful of this. These phrases come from the article titled Seven Phrases Everyone Needs to Stop Using Describing Black People. Here are some common examples of racialized and derogatory sayings, which most of them can be intertwined with each other. For example, thug, ghetto, shady, or sketchy can be describing a person who is dressed a certain way to where people do not feel comfortable and a red flag gets risen. Inner city can also be intertwined with ghetto depending on where a person comes from, um, as well as be someone saying you people. Oreo comes from a person who has a mother or father who's white or black, and vice versa with their father. And uppity is when someone is speaking a certain way that other people are not used to. So, for example, when an African American person speaks as if they were white, and they get called out on that, that would be an example of being uppity. Like many different populations, others who are not of that race will stereotype others based off of their own experiences with the individuals or often follow the media for their opinions. For example, black people are lazy, black people are ignorant, all black people are from the hood, all black people abuse the welfare system, and black people can't swim. We all know that it's been proven many of times that that is not the case with a majority of the African American people.
The history of oppression. Well, let's start with what is oppression exactly. It is the exercise of authority or power in a burdensome, cruel, or unjust manner. It is an act or an instance of oppressing or subjecting to cruel or unjust impositions or restraint. In 1619, as labor demand increased, European settlers turned to the cheapest and most plentiful source, African slaves. In 1793, the demand for American cotton soon became insatiable, which meant a need for more slaves. The demand for slaves also meant a greater threat for slave rebellion, so Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act, which made it a federal crime to assist a slave who was trying to escape. In 1857, the Dred Scott case concluded that Congress did not have the right to ban slavery in states, and furthermore, that slaves were not considered citizens. Regardless of whether the slave resided on free soil, he or she were still the property of their owner. In 1865 through 1866, although the Union victory in the Civil War gave some 4 million slaves their freedom, there were still very many barriers for them to face. Black codes were implemented, which were designed to restrict freed blacks' activity and ensure their availability as a labor force. The 15th Amendment stated that no citizen would be turned away to vote on account of their race, color, or previous condition of servitude. But this outraged many white Southerners, which led to the formation of white supremacists like the KKK. 1955, Emmett Till, a young black male, was murdered by white males for supposedly whistling at a white female. The two white men were tried in court and acquitted by an all-white jury. This was the exact same year that the infamous Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in the colored section, after the white section had been filled on the Montgomery bus. This resulted in the Montgomery bus boycott, and it was a huge contribution to the civil rights movement. In 1963, although influential black leaders like MLK were out in the public trying to inspire and campaign against racial violence and segregation, white supremacists only pushed back harder. For example, the Birmingham church bombing, where 4 young black girls who were attending Sunday school were killed. This was a popular location for civil rights meetings. Another example would be a year later when the bodies of 3 civil rights workers were found murdered by the KKK. James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner had been working to register black voters in Mississippi. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. In 1992, a series of riots started after a black male named Rodney King was brutally beaten and tasered by white male police officers. The incident was captured on tape and publicized. Many people in this country claim that we live in a post-racial society, but how can that be true when innocent black men are still being shot and brutally beaten for no good reason by law enforcement? There are also so many disparities for blacks in American employment, education, healthcare, imprisonment, and housing. To say things in America have advanced for black people would not be completely false, but it would not be completely truthful either. Let's take a look at some positive milestones in history. Milestones in history. In 1831, the most successful slave rebellion was led by Nat Turner. Him and the group of other blacks that he gathered murdered an estimated of 60 whites in 2 days before they were captured. In the early to mid-19th century, the Underground Railroad occurred. This was a secret network of routes and safe homes used by African American slaves to escape to free states. In 1861, following the Civil War, unable to avoid the subject of slavery, Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation, which stated that slaves within any state or designated part of a state and in rebellion shall be then thenceforward and forever free. The result was 3 million freed slaves. In 1870, as previously mentioned, the 15th Amendment stated that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Hiram Revels of Mississippi was elected as the country's first African American senator, and during this Reconstruction period, 16 blacks served in Congress and about 600 served in states' legislatures. In 1909, the NAACP, which stood for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, was formed to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons, and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. In 1941, more than 3 million African Americans enlisted to fight in World War II. Although they were giving their lives for the country, they still faced moments of racism from their fellow white soldiers. Blacks were then there to fight for 2 victories, one for their country and another for their race. In 1947, Jackie Robinson broke Major League Baseball's color barrier when he signed to the Brooklyn Dodgers. In 1954, Brown vs. the Board of Education determined that racial segregation was considered unconstitutional. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his infamous I Have a Dream speech. In 1964, Civil Rights Act implemented that states prohibit discrimination of all kinds based on race, color, religion, or national origin. In 1968, Shirley Chisholm became the first black female U.S. representative. In 1967, interracial marriage became legal. In 1983, the first African American went to space. His name was Guy Bluford. In 1984, People United to Save Humanity, which was later changed to People United to Serve Humanity, it is also known as PUSH, an organization formed by Jesse Jackson that advocated self-reliance for African Americans and sought to establish racial parity in the business and financial community. In 1986, the syndicated Oprah Winfrey talk show would eventually go on to become the highest rated in TV history. This show was a great platform for African Americans. In 2001, Colin Powell becomes the first African American U.S. Secretary of State. In 2002, Halle Berry became the first African American woman to win the Best Actress Oscar. Denzel Washington earned the Best Actor award, making it the first year that African Americans win both Best Actor and Actress at the Oscars. In 2009, Barack Obama became the 44th president. As our country adjusts to new changes, we can only hope to add more positive milestones to this list.
The first Negro History Week was celebrated in 1926 and was created by Carter G. Woodson, who was a scholar and historian. It was originally celebrated in the second week of February to go along with President Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthday. He felt that the struggles and accomplishments of African Americans were being ignored and wanted to celebrate how far they had come. This week has since changed to Black History Month. Thurgood Marshall was the first African American to serve on the United States Supreme Court. Prior to his appointment in 1967, he was an attorney who was involved in a number of important cases. In 1940, he won his first of 29 Supreme Court cases. He was the winning attorney in the Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka case, which demolished the legal basis for segregation in America. While on the Supreme Court, he guaranteed abortion rights through the landmark case of Roe v. Wade. Dr. Mae Jemison was the first female African American to enter space in 1992. She completed an 8-day mission on the shuttle Endeavour to work with researchers on a bone cell experiment. Sergeant Adolphus Sams invented various items for space travel, including parachute release mechanism, rocket engine pump feed system, the multiple stage rocket, air breathing booster, and many more. George Washington Carver was an African American inventor who invented many things that we still use today. He invented 300 uses for peanuts and hundreds of uses for soybeans, pecans, and sweet potatoes. However, he only received 3 patents in his name. Some of his discoveries include adhesives, axle grease, bleach, buttermilk, chili sauce, fuel briquettes, ink, instant coffee, linoleum, mayonnaise, a meat tenderizer, metal polish, paper, plastic, pavement, shaving cream, shoe polish, synthetic rubber, talcum powder, and wood stain. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most iconic civil rights leaders to ever exist. He fought for so many causes for African Americans during his life. In 1957, he became the first president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The next year, he published his first book titled Stride Towards Freedom. During his time, he met with multiple presidents, including John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson, about rights for African Americans. He delivered his timeless I Have a Dream speech in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with over 250,000 in attendance. Later that year, he was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year. Although he was assassinated in 1968, Dr. King had so much influence both during and after his life on the civil rights in the United States. Institutional racism is a serious issue that African Americans face today. In school, Black children are 3 times more likely than white children to be suspended. In the workplace, a Black graduate is twice as likely to be unemployed as his or her white counterpart. And in the criminal justice system, when charged with the same crime, a Black male is 6 times more likely to go to jail than a white male. They are twice as likely to be victims of a threat or use of force by the police. Racial profiling is another serious issue that we face in the United States today. Police officers, as well as private citizens, are guilty of profiling African Americans because of their colors of their skin. Police officers are much more likely to stop African American drivers, as well as search their vehicles.